Yo, what up, though? What's the deal, family? What's going on? How y'all doing? How y'all feeling? Another episode, man. Another episode. Here we are. Back at it again. Loved it. Love it. Love to see it. Welcome back to another episode of the Stay Focused podcast, where the goal is to keep you focused on becoming the best you while staying in faith. I'm your host with the most, Austin G. Morgan. Here at you again to be able to provide you with these gems, this word, these bars, really to help you to get to your goals, dreams, aspirations, and the life that you're truly trying to manifest and make a reality. Let's get the preliminaries out of the way. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Share this with your family and friends, a loved one, colleague, associate, whatever the case, just so that they will be blessed as well. And make sure you turn those notification bells on so you know every time I'm dropping a new episode or just anything new, to be honest with you, just anything new. So, I didn't really have too much to say in the beginning of this. Just grateful. Focus Family once again, episode 13, season 3, episode 13. I think this one would be real significant, or it is significant to me because if it's season 3, episode 13, one of Detroit's area code, or the main area code for Detroit is 313. So this will probably be a pretty good episode, honestly. It's not going to be a long one, but it'll probably be a fire episode. At least that's what I'm hoping. You know, my prayer always before I enter a new episode or before I record in general is just that I may decrease so that the Lord may increase. My goal is to always be able to figure out what it is that God wants me to share with everyone and then just share it, just do my part and be a chosen vessel. And so, with that being said, today's episode, I want to talk to you about finding God in the midst of the storm. Okay? Finding God in the midst of the storm. Now, why is this significant? Why is this important? Well, life comes with storms, naturally. Life comes with ups and downs. We've talked about this time and time again, how these things happen. They come with ups and downs, twists and turns, the whole nine. For the vast majority of this season so far, one of the themes that I've shared is obviously about faith and obedience, but essentially how to handle storms. Because the storms are coming regardless. You know, you can't escape them, you can't outrun them. All you can do is try your best to prepare for them, and then when they show up, to just endure. And that's it. And to be honest with you, I've been through enough storms in my life so far at age 32 that I can highlight a few things. I can talk about a few things. I tell you, sometimes it feels like I'm currently in a storm right now. Just the way that life has been going. And it's not to say that life is going in a bad direction. It's just, like I mentioned before, the enemy, the devil's not going to sit idly by and just watch you be blessed. Right? Sometimes God orchestrates the storm, and sometimes the devil brings the storm because he knows that sunshine is right around the corner for you. The sunshine, the clouds are being removed and stuff, and then here come the rainbows and all of that good stuff, all of the great things. What you have to remember, and I've shared this before, is that tribulation always precedes elevation, and what that simply means is that the storm essentially always comes before the sunshine. Always. It's a known fact. Think of times in your life where you were trying to get to an elevated position, whether that be a promotion at your job, the next grade in school, whatever the case may be. And when these things happened, there was like a trial period that you went through. It's just filled with trials and tribulations and obstacles and challenges and hurdles to be able to get you to that next level that you're trying to get to. Now, again, this is important to highlight and to note because when you're going through a storm, again, you need to be prepared, or at least as prepared as you'd like to be. So I can think of a couple of storms that I've been through in my life where I was prepared and storms where I wasn't prepared. And the storms where I was prepared, some of them were literal. So there was a job that I used to do previously, a previous 9 to 5 gig where I would travel for work, and there would be times where I would run into literal storms while on the road. It could be windy, it could be actual thunderstorms. They can say it's projected to be a tornado. Thankfully, I've never um, heard anything about a tornado. I haven't seen anything regarding a tornado, but I have been a part of storms. And one thing that I found interesting, I think it's a buffalo. I think they say that buffaloes, when storms are coming, they head they head to the storm like through it. One thing that I've realized is that the farther, so a storm is coming, right? Let's just paint a picture. A literal thunderstorm is on its way. And here in the city, like here in Detroit and like surrounding areas, one area that it always like rains in for some reason is Southfield. I don't know why that is. Um, but here in Southfield, Michigan, it'll always like be raining. And in the midst of this rain, like in Southfield and everything, like you'll see it coming from like different directions, east, west, north, south, whatever. But as it's coming, it's like you can, how do I put this? Nature's signs declare God's timing. So nature, the birds, the trees, like when the trees are on, I'm sorry, when the leaves are on the trees and everything, they blow a certain way or whatnot. The birds started to fly, excuse me, or migrate in a different way. What tends to happen is you will find yourself like noticing that they are heading in a different direction, sort of to signal you like, hey, a storm is coming. It's funny. I know some people, especially like older or elder folks who have had like injuries in their body, and they will always say, um, any form of precipitation that's coming, they would feel it first in their body before the storm actually shows up. Again, warning always shows up before destruction. Tribulation always precedes elevation. Those are two main things that you need to know for this episode. Like that's probably the two biggest note-taking points. Because again, I'm not going to be long with this episode. I just want to just bring about this idea of finding God in the midst of a storm, whether that be literal, whether that be figurative, whether that be like a transformative thing. It could be anything in general. So the literal storm, I think they said buffaloes like head again into a storm because if you continue to run away from a storm, the storm is still going to be coming. Like the storm is still showing up. You're just prolonging the storm going, to come into your direction. And sometimes when the storm comes, fear creeps into our heart, fear creeps into our mind, and then it paralyzes our body. The last thing that we need in this season of our lives where a lot of shifts and transitions are happening, because I know I'm not the only one that's going through this. When the shifts and the transitions are happening, you don't need fear. You need courage. Notice I didn't say faith this time. You do need faith. Faith is always going to be the thing that moves God. Please know that. The Bible actually says that without faith, it is impossible to please God. Again, we understand. I'm going to say this every episode because, I need y'all to have this embedded in your brain. Faith is acting on what you've heard from God. We walk by faith and not by sight. Excuse me. Let me get some of this water real quick. I ain't going to lie. My voice kind of... Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. There we go. We back. So, faith comes by hearing and hearing by the word of God. We walk by faith and not by sight. The sight part is a thing that produces the fear at times. Because what you see may not be favorable. Right? Have you ever seen like dark clouds? Like you just look up in the sky, you see dark clouds coming your way, but the storm never showed up. Sometimes it's just an illusion. Sometimes it just could be dark clouds coming through. It could miss the entire area. Like imagine watching the news specifically for the weather and they letting you know, hey, between the hours of 5 and 7 p.m. Expect like a 40% chance of rain or any form of precipitation. When that happens, you realize and you understand, like, okay, 40% chance of rain. I need to make sure my windows are rolled up in my car. Um, if it's depending on the season or whatnot, when it does rain, I need to make sure that everything is kind of like secured, so that way the rain doesn't mess up anything around me. This is where perspective becomes important. If you can find God, again, in the midst of the storm, your perspective can switch. It can shift into whatever it is that God is trying to bring to your attention. So this is what I mean by that. A little while back on my Instagram, I had posted a video and I was talking about how we need to find God in every single scenario that we find ourselves in. Because if we can find God, we can find peace. And if we can find a peace that passes all understanding, like the Bible mentions, and I believe it's Philippians chapter 4, verse 7. I'll put that on the screen, don't worry about it. But we can find a peace that passes all understanding, keeping our hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. What will happen is, it would allow us to be at peace even when the storms arrive. And this is going back to when I said that you need courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, but moving forward in spite of it. So essentially, like when you think of like a buffalo, the animal, they are courageous because they're constantly moving through the storm. I will never forget going back to the previous 9 to 5 job that I had. There was a time where I was heading up north to like Flint or like Grand Rapids. For those of you who don't know, that is a city. Those are cities up north of Michigan, heading towards like the Upper Peninsula. So we got an Upper Peninsula, Lower Peninsula. Detroit is in the Lower Peninsula area. It's a huge city, but heading towards like Grand Rapids, Flint, and everything, that's heading more towards like the Upper Peninsula. It's like the upper part of the Lower Peninsula, but still. The thing is, I'm heading upward, and it hasn't been raining in the city. But as I'm heading upward, it's starting to like rain like crazy. It's raining so hard and starting a thunderstorm that I can't even pretty much see in front of me. Now I got two options. I can either pull over and, wait for the storm to get done, or I can push through the storm so that way I can continue to knock out what I need to knock out for work. Now I've done that 2 different times. I've been on both ends of that spectrum. On one end, when I pulled over and got on the shoulder and just sat there, what I noticed is that the rain stayed a prolonged period of time because there was no more motion. Right? Sometimes when a storm hits your life, you don't need to stop the motion. Sometimes you need to assess the situation first, and then you need to be able to figure out what the next course of action will be. So in this instance, one time I stayed on the shoulder and I just waited for the rain to stop. It took about a good hour before it stopped. Then there was another time where there were other vehicles. I was in the middle lane. There were other vehicles to the right of me and to the left of me where I was going, and we're all just going at a slow pace, hazard lights on so that way we can see each other. And before we knew it, everything cleared up as if it hadn't rained at all. Sometimes when a storm hits your life, family, you got to still keep moving. Because that is attached to your faith at times. Think about it. If fear paralyzes you, but faith helps you, fear paralyzes you and help you to, makes you forget. Faith helps you to remember and keeps the motion going, keeps you moving forward. It's almost as if God is telling you to stay focused on Him. I think of, as I'm thinking about this, I think of when Peter was walking on water. And, it's in the book of Matthew. I can't remember exactly where it's at, but in the book of Matthew, Jesus is with the disciples. He went up to a mountain to be alone, to pray, meditate, all that good stuff. By the time they see Jesus again, The disciples are on the ship, and the sea is like raging pretty. The sea is like, it's getting kind of dark, and I think the sea was raging a little bit, if my memory serves me correctly. But the point is, they see Jesus afar off, and he's literally walking on water. Now, that's a huge level of faith to walk on a large body of water. We be putting wet floor signs inside of like grocery stores, pharmacies, and all that stuff to let you know, like, hey, the floor is wet. Be careful. Be cautious. Here you got Jesus walking on a whole vast body of water. That's crazy to me. So Jesus pretty much says, like, if like, fear not. Again, here's that fear word again. We're in the storm. Fear not. This is me, y'all. This is me. It's Jesus. Peter said, okay, if it's you, Lord, bid me to come out here to where you're at. So Jesus like, okay, come on. He comes out. He's starting to walk on water. What happens is he's focused on the Lord. So just like how I'm looking directly into this camera, I'm focused on y'all. The moment, and like they said this in the Bible, the wind started blowing, and it got real crazy for a minute. Fear crept into his heart, and he's looking like, side by side. And what happened was he started to sink, started to drown. Jesus grabs him, prevents him from drowning. And then Jesus asked him a question. O ye of little faith, wherefore, or when did you doubt? We do the exact same thing when we're heading through a storm. If we trust God enough to get us through the storm of our lives, then we'll be fine. Think about this, right? Let's make it literal. We trust a pilot to guide us through the air in a giant plane. We're off land, and we're inside of this large contraption similar to a bird. It takes off, but the one who's controlling it is the pilot. We've never seen the pilot a lot of times. Sometimes we get on the plane and we don't even see the pilot until after we're getting ready to leave out. Then most people will thank the pilot, thank you for getting us to safety, the whole nine. But beforehand, sometimes you don't even see it. So we can't sit here and say that we don't have faith in something, right? We need to have faith in God, but we can't just sit here and just flat out say that we don't have faith in something. Like, that doesn't make sense. Because when I use this phone, right? When I use this cellular device and I make a phone call, I'm expecting and utilizing faith that if I call somebody that's not even in my vicinity, that they're going to be able to receive that call. They can be all the way in Bali. They can be in Australia. They can be in Japan. They can be in Houston, Texas. They can be in New York City, New York. And I'm here in Detroit. And I'm supposed to expect a receiver to go through so that they can receive my call. God is the exact same way when it comes to our lives. It's the exact same way. To the point where when a storm arrives, when a storm hits our lives, okay, there we go. When a storm hits our lives, we got to make sure that we're doing our part. And our part is simply trusting the Lord. Now, I know we may have a hard time looking like what that, knowing what that looks like. I get it. I've been there. To some degree, still am. Okay? I'm not perfect when it comes to that. Well, let me not say not perfect, because in that instance, perfect always means mature. I am maturing. But I'm not infallible or like incapable of falling. None of us are infallible, but we can be perfect in the aspect of maturity. I want to clear that up because the Bible mentions in numerous locations that people were perfect or he asked them to be perfect. So let's debunk that first and foremost. So, thinking of the storm, you need courage. Again, courage is not the absence of fear, but is moving forward in spite of that very fear. Do you have courage in this season of your life? And if you don't, why not? That's just a question for you to ask you and for you to ask God. Ask the people around you, people that you really trust. You know, I'm reminded of Batman, right? One of my favorite series is the Christopher Nolan Batman like Dark Knight trilogy. And in Batman Begins, the very first installment of that, Bruce is asked by his dad, "Why do we fall? Why do we fall, Bruce?" Because we're to learn to pick ourselves up. When it comes to fear, however, though, when he fell, so he like in that trilogy, he fell into a well, and then there were like he looked into like the darkness or the abyss, and there were bats and stuff. And what happened was he was so afraid of the bats, right? That the fall had produced, the fall produced some things. And then like the aftermath of that was seeing these bats coming his way. Bats were harmless. They weren't doing anything to him. It was just, he was fearful. He was full of fear. Fast forward, he gets older. There's still this there's still this fear that he has. But the thing that I'm reminded of is how he capitalized on that fear and became fear itself. To the degree where his literal name, to be out here crime, fighting crime and being a vigilante, if you will, was Batman. Man of the Bats, if you will. That's probably how they came up with it. But he capitalized on his fear so that way he can take control and be courageous throughout the fear that he once felt even as a child. There are times where we might be fearful of things. Like, I'm going to give you an example. I went to, sometime last year, it was like August of last year. Me and my brother, one of my best friends, we went to Bali. We had a great time, right? One thing that I loved about Bali was my ability to conquer fears while I was out there. Because here's the thing. If fear paralyzes you, that means that you will at some point cease to live. We desire to live. We desire to get to a place where things are going to work and are for us. So I'm going to be real transparent. I have a fear of water to a degree. I have a fear of heights to a degree. Those are probably like my biggest ones. Fear of heights and the fear of the water. Like large, vast bodies of water. Because I'm going to be honest, I don't know how to swim. Like some people don't know how to swim. I happen to be one of them. I do plan on learning how to swim. It's just not right now. But that doesn't mean that I should stop living life. I can be careful and cautious, but that doesn't mean I should stop living life. So we're in Bali, having a great time. First and foremost, to get there, you got to fly there. So the fear of heights, being in a plane for hours, and I mean almost a whole day, consistently, being in the air. I think the longest we were on that flight to Australia, we went from LAX to Australia. That was about 15 and a half, 16 hours. A long time. Finally got there. We made it to Bali safely. Everything was good. A couple of the activities that we did where I conquered fears was whitewater rafting, jet skis. Those are for the fear of the water. And God was with me throughout the entire time. Like he revealed to me different things of how I was like good to go. I might do a Bali episode. I was supposed to do a Bali episode like a long time ago because Bali, being out there, really helped me to unlock a different version of myself. First time I for real went like international, tread the international waters. The first time I ever flown to a different country was Costa Rica. Costa Rica was an absolute beautiful time. It's a beautiful time. I went out there with beautiful people. It was fantastic. And it was a great experience. Bali, however, I went with like a vast group of people, and now it's the reason why I now have friends all across the world, which is an amazing thing. So let me just say this as a quick disclaimer or a quick sidebar. Go out of town, get out of the country, and view what the world looks like while you have the chance to. It's a beautiful, I'm telling you, life is so much bigger than Detroit. For those of you who live here, life is so much bigger than Michigan. Life is so much bigger than the U.S. Go live. Go live. Go fight those fears. So one of the things that we did was paragliding, parasailing. Parasailing, if you don't know what that is, you're out in the water first and foremost. Large body of water. I'm talking about an ocean. And it's like a giant parachute. And you're just in the air. And you're just pretty much looking at the vast bodies of water. Now, initially, I was a little scared. But then I thought about it. I'm like, okay, if I believe God the way that I say that I believe God, either one or two things is going to happen. Either this is going to be my last day here, or it's not. So I took a chance, took a risk, excuse me, and found out that it wasn't my last time. And the fear that I once felt, again, because fear is an illusion, the fear that I once felt was calm because I'm just up in the air. I'm secure, I'm safe, and I just trust God. And that's that. So I'm in the air. So I'm conquering like two fears at once because I'm in the air, got this fear of heights, but I'm also surrounded by a vast body of water. So I'm conquering two fears at once. Family, I'm telling you, we need to conquer our fears. Every fear is not going to get conquered. That's real. Because, fear is a real thing. Fear is a power, but so is faith. Again, what am I talking about? Finding God in the midst of the storms. For me, internally, mentally, that was a storm because I got this fear that I'm feeling inside. I'm like, I don't know. I can't do this. That just makes me very uncomfortable. I'm all set. But I did have my brother with me who convinced me, like, hey, like, what I'm saying, I've never done this either, so I'm with you. You're not alone in this. Find somebody who will help you to conquer whatever fears that you have, whether that's internal or external. Drop it in the comments what your fears are. You know what I'm saying? We can talk about them. We can pray about them. Do whatever we need to do. But in this hour, in this season of our lives, we need courage. Because courage, again, is not the absence of the fear, but moving forward in spite of it. A lot of you want to start that business. A lot of you want to move forward in your career. But there's some fear attached to it. Growth and comfort don't mix. I tell you this all the time. There's a certain level of fear that comes with change, that comes with growth, because you don't know what it's going to look like on the other side. But this is why we got to capitalize on the faith that we do have, or tapping into the faith of someone around us or our tribe in our village, the faith that they have. So that way we can continue to push forward in the direction that we're trying to go to, because we got these goals, these dreams, these aspirations in this life that we're truly trying to manifest and make a reality. Yeah, I know it's coming. I'm not gonna lie, that's my favorite part of every episode. I swear it is. Stop playing with me. Okay? Stop playing with God first. Because again, Alpha and Omega, beginning and end, first and the last. He know what he doing. He got you right in the palm of his hand. He's holding you up with his hand. He got you. So stop playing with God. Stop playing with me. Because I know what I be talking about. But as always, stop playing with you, because you got this. Everything that you want out of life is on the opposite side of fear. Think about that for a minute. This is one thing that I'll say, and I'm going to be wrapping up. One of my favorite comedians of all time is Eddie Griffin. I'm not sure if a lot of you know who he is, but look him up. He's actually pretty funny to me. But I like Eddie Griffin because he's very animated and like dramatic with his comedy, but he also be spitting bars too. Like I don't agree with every single thing that he said, but he tries to teach you, fills you with knowledge and understanding. One of my favorite quotes that he used to say in like his comedy skit was, "Think, it ain't illegal yet, but they're working on it." By they, he meant like the powers that be, or whoever's in control. They're working on you not being able to think. A lot of times we may watch the news or we watch like different things that invoke fear in us, right? They invoke fear in us. And what happens is when that fear is invoked in us, what tends to happen? No more motion. We're paralyzed because like, oh my goodness, like, you know what I'm saying? It's a scary thing. We got to move past that. We got to move past that. And so when he's talking about, thinking, we want to think outside the box when it comes to these things and understand, as always, like I've said before, that God didn't give us the spirit of fear. He didn't give it to us, but it's prevalent. He didn't give it to us, but it's in us. God didn't give us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and of a sound mind. So where did the fear come from? Who wants us to be afraid that much? Make it make sense. The enemy. The devil does. Because the devil knows, one, that he only has but a short time. But he also knows that if he can get you to stop moving by faith because of the fear that you feel, then he knows that he can stop you from getting to the place that God has already preordained for you to be at. I'm just saying. So when these storms arrive, we don't need the fear. We need to focus on the faith that comes with the storm. Keep our eyes on Christ. Because when that happens, whatever we see around us, whatever we feel around us, it's not even relevant. It's not relevant because it's like, hey, we know what we need to do. We know exactly what we need to do. So today, I just wanted to talk about real quick on why finding God in the midst of a storm is very essential on your journey to greatness. Because again, if you can find God, so like finding God in the midst of a storm is very similar to when I said earlier, finding God in every scenario that you find yourself in, whether good or bad. If you can find God, again, if you can find God, you can find the peace. And if you can find the peace that passes all understanding, now keep that in mind, the peace that surpasses all understanding, your understanding, my understanding, your parents' understanding, your pastor's understanding, all of that. It passes all understanding to keep your heart and mind through Christ Jesus. That's what we want. That's what we want. And that's what I'm looking to help y'all with in this episode. By just highlighting and acknowledging, hey, I feel this fear. I can sense this fear in my heart, in my mind, in my emotions. Now, what do I do with that? I can channel that fear. You know, fear has two acronyms, FEAR. You can either forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. The choice is yours. Again, I'm going to say that one more time in my closing. With fear, you can do one of two things. You can forget everything and run, or you can face everything and rise. Again, the choice is yours. And with that, family, has been another episode of the Stay Focused Podcast. Listen, I appreciate y'all as always. You know, episode 13 of season 3. We're literally past now the halfway mark. A beautiful thing. We've been very consistent, week by week, month by month. Next week, if all goes well, I will have a surprise for you all. For those of you who've been tapping in and keeping up, I really appreciate y'all. It'll probably be the first time in history of this thing being done. So we shall see. Got something nice in store. But nevertheless, you can follow me on my social media platforms. I will put those links in the description with no problem. I mean, I don't even know if y'all be looking at it. I really don't know. But the last thing that I want to highlight, as always, is to provide you with a Bible verse and or motivational quote of the week to keep you going for the rest of the week until we meet again. I have a motivational quote from Vivian Green. Vivian Green is I believe, an R&B artist. Yeah, R&B artist. And this is one of the things that she had to say. She said, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. Hear me clearly when I say this. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. Now, why is that so significant for this episode? Because if you're finding God in the midst of the storm, is the finding God part that allows you to dance in the rain while you're waiting for the storm to pass. For my believers, praising God in the midst of the storm is essentially the dancing in the rain. That's the symbolism there. You praise him anyhow. The storm, this too shall pass. Every bad thing that has happened to you, it too shall pass. Tough times don't last, but tough people do. You're a soldier. You're a warrior. I need you to act like it. Even if you don't have the strength yourself, God has the strength for you. The Bible says that my grace is sufficient in your infirmities and your weaknesses. He gives us strength. God is a very present help in a time of trouble. He strengthens us when we've been weak, when we've been made weak. You're doing things in your own strength. That's not how God designed it. He didn't want you to do everything in your own strength. He actually wanted you to resolve something, like keep some of that strength so that once it's depleted, you call on the Lord and then he gives you the strength to continue to endure. Because when God adds his super to your natural, now everything supernatural around you is happening. Now you become supernatural. And people get to wonder, like, how did they do that? How did they get that accomplished? Because you and God are a majority in a world that makes you feel like a minority. And again, family, life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass, like Vivian Green said. It's about learning to dance in the rain. And again, guys, this has been another episode of the Stay Focused podcast, where the goal is to keep you focused on becoming the best you while staying in faith. I'm your host, Austin G. Morgan. Be blessed, be encouraged. Remember that finding God in the midst of the storm will not only allow you to dance in the rain, but it'll keep you focused on what it is that you want to do so that you can continue to propel and be excellent in every area of your life. And as always, most importantly, stay focused. I'll talk to y'all next week.